I want to tell you guys a story, and believe me, you'll want to stick around to the end. The year was 1996. The world of motorsports was filled with energy. The GT1 and GT2 classes were at their peaks as they raced through the finish lines. The world of rally was no different, with some of the best drivers at the time competing to win the championship in newer all-wheel drive models. And in that very same year, I was born. My family and I didn't come from much, as was the status quo for so many families living in Mexico. Despite this, my family was very lucky, as my father would come to work in the US and send money back home. This energy my father gave us was enough for us to get by. It was during this time, with what little we had, I was endowed with my very first Hot Wheels car. It was everything I had ever dreamed up until that point. Shortly after, my brother and I would spend countless hours playing a game we invented called metitas, or stints. The rules were simple: grab a rock, draw a track on the ground, add some obstacles, add some checkpoints throughout, and lastly, add the finish line. In order to be in the game, you needed to have at least one wheel and track at all times. Everyone would take turns, bumping was allowed, and if you were in the middle of a race and someone bumped you out, you would have to go back to the last checkpoint. As you can imagine, these rules made for some intense moments. This game we played was what we had when we were growing up, and with that, my love for racing was ignited. It wasn't until I was 6 years old when I was gifted a Hot Wheels track, and that was a whole new experience. I absolutely loved that track. All it was a simple loop track, but it kept me engaged for hours on end. As my passion grew, so did life itself. I was 6 years old when my parents decided to move from Mexico and come live in the United States. At that time, I didn't know what was about to happen. My parents told us to pack what we wanted and not to put anything extra in the luggage. I didn't listen, obviously, and I was able to sneak a few Hot Wheels cars in the suitcase, but left one of my all-time favorite cars on top of the fridge because I believed that we were coming back. That was not the case. I remember being on a bus on the way up to the States and looking out the window, recalling back to all what I had lost. I was saddened because I loved what I had, and to be taken into somewhere new was scary, especially when you were young. Nevertheless, I was hopeful to see something new and experience the world. It was a couple of years after getting settled into the States where I first got to experience my very first proper racing game. That game was Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2. My brother and I would race each other for hours on end. It was a great time. I remember when the sun would hit a certain way, we would cheekily say to one another that the sun was blinding. At the time, it was really real for us. From then on, my passion for racing games and racing kept on growing and growing, and I never saw an end to it coming. That passion I had, however, waned as I got older. Going through the growing pains in life can really throw a wrench at what you really enjoy. I had lost my passion and I didn't know how to get it back. How do you get something back that has been lost for so long, and how do you get something back that you didn't even know you were missing? I was in my final year of university when life was starting to pick up, with so many changes happening, from the prospects of new jobs on the horizon, moving to a new place, all combined into one. This is when I felt something was missing within myself. Reflecting in solace helped move some energy within my soul, and all of a sudden, I had a revelation which seemed to come from nowhere but the soul. Hey, why don't you pick up some Xbox 360 games you've never played? And so I did what my soul willed. I went to my local used game store and picked up a copy of Forza 4. Little did I know at the time that it would be this game which would rekindle the fire within myself I had lost for so long. It felt unreal, like I was stealing fire from the gods. After that, I remember buying Forza 7, playing Virus Tag, completing some of the career races and having a blast. thanks to my brothers joining me in this experience, the experience itself was heightened even more. Fuck, my bad. Imagine that in real life, dude.
After all that trouble,
Yeah.
speeding through the traffic, that was cool, right?
Yeah, that was sick. I still felt that something else was missing, but I didn't quite know what it was. I did know, however, since I was a young kid, I wanted a racing wheel, but coming from poverty, I never saw that happening. Years would go by and this would stick with me in the back of my head. No longer did I feel like I was missing something. It wasn't until the lockdowns when I would get my hands on my very first sim racing wheel. At the time, I had purchased the PXN, but returned it within a week because of its lackluster performance. So, I moved over to Logitech, and now having a proper racing wheel, it was my time to get started sim racing. I remember the very first racing game I purchased was Assetto Corsa Competizione. The physics, the visuals were all top notch, and I fell in love with sim racing. Having found a passion and not just something I liked, I felt inclined to start this YouTube channel.
3 left, narrow. 5 right. 6.
And throughout my journey, you have seen the upgrades that have come along with the passion itself, ranging from the Fanatec CSL DD, the cockpit, the triple monitors, and how could I forget the TOBI Eye 5, which provides me with a light VR experience. On top of this, my love of racing came back full force. I've been able to give back to my parents and family by sharing the passion with them, taking them along to see some of the GT World America races and some of the IMSA WeatherTech Championship events. It is those moments we share that remind me of how awesome it is to spread positivity and show the younger generations what motorsports has to offer. This is all to say that I'm really thankful for you all being here and supporting the channel with your likes, your comments, and your subscriptions. It keeps me coming back to provide you all with quality videos on my thoughts and experiences in the sim racing and finance world. If you have a story or an experience of how you fell in love with sim racing, I think it would be great for others to hear these stories. Please feel free to share them down in the comments below. It'll show us that we are not alone in this journey of life. And if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to rev up that like button. It is always appreciated. I have one last thing before I let you guys go. In my last video, I had a giveaway for some Assetto Corsa keys. This was all made possible thanks to Humble Bundle. Please check out the link in the description below to help support the channel. And here are the winners for the giveaway. Phantom KL, Cat Yi, Salvatore Cutripa, VR46 Fan Club, and lastly, Cranth885. Check your email soon for an incoming message. And lastly, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your night, and as always, SimFin here, peacing out.